that I just can't wrap my head around how somebody can find out they have a child out in the world and they want nothing to do with it.
Hello, you are listening to NPE Stories. This is a podcast where NPEs can share their story. I am your host, Lily, and I found out I was an NPE through an ancestry DNA test that changed my life forever. NPE is a term that stands for Not Parent Expected or Non-Paternal Event. This means that one or more of our parents are not who we believe them to be. NPE Stories is a podcast where NPEs can share their story of what their original family was like, how they found out they were an NPE, and what their journey has been like since the day they found out. Welcome to episode 197. And last week, I returned from the Untangling Our Roots Summit. It was held in Denver, Colorado. It was an amazing 4 days, very emotional at times, but very healing. It was a place for everyone in the adoption constellation and the NPE world to gather. We also had DCPs and LDAs and many, many facilitators. And I got so much out of it. So I wanted to share one of the panels I went to last weekend and share one of their resources. And I have spoken about this person before. Her name is Megan Hunter. She is an MBA at the High Conflict Institute, which she runs with Bill Eddy. I went to her talk last year as well. This year, she had something called Flipping the Script in Highly Emotional Conversations. This was a really important panel because I think many NPEs find themselves in situations that are highly emotional at times. So she spent time explaining the left brain and the right brain and how the right brain is reacting. The right brain is our war brain. She talked a little bit about brain management when you're in a highly emotional conversation. There's so many articles and resources she had on her website. So I will put the link down below for the High Conflict Institute. One thing I personally got from this talk was that Megan explained to us the tone of voice matters a lot because your amygdala is listening. Your amygdala is hypersensitive to tone of voice. So one of the things she said was you can work on your own tone of voice. Of course, our right brain can take over when the person we are speaking to has a tone of voice that hurts, that is confrontational, combative, but we can work on our own tone of voice in a highly emotional conversation. And I found that in myself. When I'm feeling calm, I feel my tone of voice is calmer. Ooh, but when I'm upset about something, boy, does my voice change. So we can kind of trick our brain and do the opposite of what you feel like doing and kind of get your right brain, get back into some brain management in those highly emotional conversations. All right, so let's move on to our story this week. I spoke with so many NPEs last weekend. It felt so good. And today I have an NPE who is actually local to me here in the Twin Cities. Today I am speaking with Kris. Hi, Kris.
Hi, Lily.
Thank you for doing this today.
I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
I love that we're both in the Minneapolis area. I've met so many NPEs the last few weeks that are local. I feel like we should get together for coffee sometime.
Oh, I would love that.
Right?
Yes.
Have you ever joined any of the local meetup groups?
I haven't. I would really love to. I have not, though. I've done the retreats and done stuff with people outside of Minnesota, but I would love to do that.
Ooh, what retreats have you done?
With Aaron and Cindy.
The High Wraith Hope and Healing.
Yes.
I'm sure I'm pronouncing that wrong.
I've done 2 of those.
Okay, what locations have you done?
Phoenix and, oh gosh, where was it? In
Jersey?
Texas. No, Texas.
Oh my goodness, you got to do the Texas one and the Phoenix one. I know one, they always pick these beautiful homes And is Erin still doing most of the cooking?
Oh, yeah,
Oh my gosh, she makes the best food those
she
weekends.
does.
Oh, that's so okay. So we have mutual NPE and adoptee friends because I know a lot of the regulars that go to
Yeah,
those.
yeah, they're
Oh,
great. It's such a great community.
I'm going to put the link for those retreats because wow, those they bring in some great facilitators. And did you meet Eve Sturgis then?
Yes, I love Eve. She is amazing.
Oh, that's so good. Yes, I know she works with them on their retreats as well.
Yeah, she was at both of the ones I was at.
Oh, that's so good to hear. All right, Kris. So you have an NPE story today. Let's get started on your family of origin. Tell me a little bit about your childhood and what your raising family was like.
I was born and raised in Minneapolis, where I still live today. And my parents met, so my parents, my mom and my dad, they met working together in the late 70s. And they dated for about 6 years and then got married. And 8 months later, had me. And yes, 8 months, not 9 months, which came into play later. But they had me. And then 3.5 years later, had my little brother. And that's it. That's the two of us. I'm the oldest of two. And the four of us, I mean, it was lovely. I loved my childhood. We had a nice house in, I'd say, maybe upper middle class area in Minneapolis. My dad worked for the airlines, so we got to fly for free. So we'd go to Hawaii once a year, San Diego. We'd have a day off of school, and my dad would take us to Chicago for the day, be home in time for dinner. It was lovely. It was really fun. But in about first grade, so I'm still pretty young at this point, but first grade, my mom came and picked me up from school right after school, which was unusual because usually I went to after school care. So I was so excited to see her. But it turns out she was picking me up and taking me out for cheesecake to tell me that her and my dad were getting a divorce, which was just tragic. I went to, grew up Catholic, went to Catholic school. At that time, there was not many people with divorced parents. So, it's, on top of being really sad and tragic for me, it was kind of embarrassing too, because I didn't know anybody else with divorced parents. It turned out it was okay. My mom moved out. She got an apartment, and my dad stayed in the house that we were living in. And we did kind of the every other week thing. And it was good. They were, I would say, I had the most functional divorced parents out there. They came to sporting events together. They'd sit together. We did holidays together. We even did trips sometimes together. I never felt awkward between the two of them. My dad never said a bad word about my mom. My mom never said a bad word about my dad. I will say, after they got a divorce, my mom very quickly introduced us to her boyfriend, who turned out to be my stepdad. And when I was in third grade, they got engaged. And my mom decided it would be good for us to go to therapy with my brother, her, and my future stepdad and me. And we went, and I don't remember much of it other than being really upset and crying because I was worried about my dad and how he was going to feel that I had a stepdad. And I was so sad. And the therapist decided that it would be best to have a therapy session with my future stepdad and my dad. And so asked if my dad would be interested in doing that. And my dad did it. And I look back on that and think, God, how amazing of a guy is he? And, and I learned later my mom was having an affair on my dad with my stepdad. So for him to go to this therapy session with a guy who had an affair with his wife and was soon going to be his children's stepdad. And he did that. And he did that for us because he cared about us. And I think that kind of laid the foundation of who he was in our life going forward. He would do anything for us. I love him so much. I was such a daddy's girl. My mom got married. That was fine. Life continued. My dad loved driving me and my friends around. I had friends over all the time. My dad's house was the house my parents were married in, and there wasn't a step parent there. So it was really, that was my home. Where my mom lived, I felt like I was always visiting. My dad's house was my home. And as I got older and had more of a choice of where I was at my dad's as much as I could be. But so I grew up, went to high school where I met my husband. I went to college, and that leads me to, getting married and having 3 kids. My husband and my 3 kids, happy, really strong relationship with my mom still and my dad. Things are going well. But in 2014, so this is 10 years ago, I was watching the television show on PBS, Finding Your Roots, I think it's called. And it was a story, he does celebrity DNA pretty much and takes them back through their roots and helps them find where they're from. And I'm watching the show and I'm like, that is the coolest thing ever. I want to do that so bad. So what do? Of course, I buy myself a test. I buy my husband a test. I buy my husband's parents a test for Christmas. I buy my dad a test for Christmas. My mom, I offered to get her one for Christmas and she said she didn't have any interest, which I thought was interesting. But so we did that and I took the test, got the results back. And this is 10 years ago already. I can't believe that. But when I looked at the results, and it was so early on, the test couldn't decipher between English and Irish. And so it said, my dad is English. And so when I got the test back, it said I was half English, half English / Irish is what it said. And so that made sense to me. So I didn't ask my dad to see his to compare our percentages or anything like that. I don't believe at that time that it listed people you were matched with, because that would have stuck out to me. So I looked at it, found out I was half Polish. That's my mom. Half English / Irish. That's my dad. Okay. Like that was it. That was really fun. Excited I took the test and life went on. And then about 2 years later, I went back in just to look at it, and it looked like you could connect with people, right? So you could send someone a request to connect with them, and then you'd be connected on 23andMe. And so I knew my dad took it, and the way I thought I understood it at the time was I wouldn't be able to see him because of the XY chromosomes. That doesn't make sense now, but then in my head, it was like I couldn't see him unless we were connected. So I sent him a request. He said he never got it, so I asked him to send me a request. And so he sent me a request, and I'm riding in the car with my husband and my 3 kids. We're heading to Target on a Sunday afternoon, and I get this email saying, you have a request, it was from my dad to connect. I'm like, yay, this is fun. I get to connect with him. And I hit the connect button, and then it said, you have no DNA in common with this person. And I'm like, what? User error, right? Try to do it again. Same thing. Try to do it again. Same thing. And I think I'm doing something wrong because it is so out of any possibility that my dad's not my dad, in my head, at least. And then I decided to text my mom. So we're still in the car, and I decided to text my mom. I'm really glad I didn't text my dad, but I decided to text my mom. And I said, I'm doing this 23andMe thing. I'm trying to connect with dad, and it says no DNA. Anything you need to tell me, ? And then laughing emojis. Because I really think that I've done something wrong, or there's something wrong with the test. And then I get nothing, crickets, back from my mom, which was weird. So I was like, And as minutes are going by, it's starting to, I'm starting to think about it more. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like what if this is real? And then I text her back, mom ? And then finally she texts me back and says, I think we need to talk. And oh my gosh, like my world just shifted. I knew right then and there, this was bad. I think we need to talk. So we went to Target, husband and the kids, and then went home, and I went into our bedroom and shut the door and called my mom. And she said, okay, can you tell me a little bit more? Because I thought you took this test like 2 years ago. And I said, I did, but I found out I could connect with dad. And when I tried to connect with dad, it said there's no DNA in common between the two of us. And she said, well, okay, before your dad and I got married, I was sowing my wild oats, and I might have slept with somebody else, or I did sleep with somebody else. I never knew for sure, but now it looks like, your dad is not your biological father. And I was like, what? And I'm sobbing because I can tell you, my dad, in my head, I looked like my dad. We both have green eyes. I thought we walked the same. My dad is extroverted, always likes to be out with friends. That's me. My mom is introverted and shy. And I thought, I've always in my head, I was like my father, and my brother is more like my mom. That's the story I'd always told myself. And I looked more like my dad, story I told myself. And so when you find out this, it's like everything I thought I knew about myself was not what I thought it was. And I'm sobbing on the phone with her, and I tell her, okay, who knows? Who knows this? And she said, well, I did actually tell your dad when you were a baby that this possibly could be the case. And he decided he wanted to raise you as his own. He doesn't know for sure. And just like I didn't know for sure. So, it's out there. And she said, but I've never told anybody else. She said I was going to die with this. So I said, okay, I'm going to delete my account. I'm not going to tell anybody. I'm not going to talk to Dad. I am going to continue on like Dad is my dad. That's how I decided I was going to do this. Maybe I'll look into it after Dad passes away, but I am deleting my account and going silent on this. That was my solution. So it's my solution. If I didn't dig more into this and didn't verify it, then maybe it's not real, right? So I did that. I deleted my account and I told my husband, he's the only one that knew, and decided that's that. I'm never going to know. She told me when she said she sowed her wild oats, she said she wasn't sure who the biological father was. So there's no way that I could get in touch with him. And so I just decided, okay, I'm just not going to know. And this is going to be it. And I will say, my dad did say, did you get my connection email? And I said, you know what, I did, but I was messing around with it and I accidentally deleted my account. And for some reason, that was enough for him to say, oh, okay. And we just went on. And I still to this day have not ever told my dad. And I can talk a little bit more about that a little later. But so time went on. So this was in 2016 that I found out and deleted my account. And then fast forward to 2020. So I'd known for 4 years, been sad dealing with it, all of the things, but really buried it down deep inside, didn't tell anybody. And then in 2020, my mom decided to take a 23andMe test, and she did it. And then she found out she had a niece that none of us knew about. So that would be a cousin of mine. And her niece contacted her and said, I took a test and found out my dad is not my dad. And it looks like you're my aunt. I'm wondering if you could help me find my birth father. And my mom has 4 brothers. And so she, did some digging and looked at dates and all of that and narrowed it down to one of her brothers being the biological father. And she called me and she was so excited about this. You have a new cousin, and, your Uncle Tom has a daughter, and she connected them, and we embraced her, and now she comes to family stuff. And anyway, but when she brought this to me, I thought it was so interesting because she didn't at any time say, how does that make you feel? Knowing that you're in a very similar situation and you don't know who your father is. Like nothing. She said nothing. And I thought it was just so weird and a little insensitive, but it brought everything back for me because at that point I'd been burying everything down, and I was a little envious of her being able to find out who her father was. And then we're out to breakfast. This is still around the same time frame. We're out to breakfast one morning. This is before COVID, so really early 2020. And with my mom and my stepdad and kids and husband, and my mom leans over and says, by the way, I do know who your birth father is. And I was like, what? What? You told me you didn't know. She said, well, you caught me off guard when you asked me the first time. I was like, oh my gosh, mother. And so she told me a name. She gave me the name. She told me his birth year and told me where he was originally from. And I went home and just, went down a rabbit hole on the internet trying to find him. And he's not on any social media or anything like that. And so no pictures online, but I was able to find him, and he lives, like 15 minutes away from me. So I was like, oh my gosh. And then I wanted to verify it. And I said to my mom, are you sure this is the one? I don't want to, get all worked up on this. And then she wrote back, well, that really hurt my feelings. And I'm like, okay, I think you've lost the ability to say that, given given everything. But I did then decide I wanted to take 23andMe again and at Ancestry to see if I could verify that this was indeed my birth father. 23andMe didn't tell me much, and I went on with like a pseudonym. I still have a pseudonym on my 23andMe account and my Ancestry account. I didn't find much from the 23andMe, but on Ancestry, my birth father's brother had taken Ancestry and it showed up that he was my uncle. So that verified who he was. From there, there hasn't been much activity. I have tried to contact him multiple times. I send him a Christmas card every year. So I've sent him 4 Christmas cards and a letter each time telling him about his grandchildren. I'm doing air quotes and saying, I just would like to meet you one time. I want to see him. I don't know. There's that whole genetic mirroring thing. And I very much would just love to lay eyes on him one time. But he has not responded. I asked my mom to send him a letter, and she did. She sent it to me first to look at, and it was a lovely letter. And she said she just wants to meet you one time. We can, she'd be happy to be the, facilitate that if he was interested. And nothing. And I've listened to these NPE shows, and so many of the NPEs out there find out that they're NPEs after their birth father has passed away, or in nursing homes, or things like that. And I don't want that to happen. So I'm at a point now where it's like, do I show up at his door and just knock because I know where he lives? But I don't know. So I've reached out to. I had a cousin show up on 23andMe that is his brother's child. And I sent her a note and said, I just want health history. Can someone respond to me? And she did respond to me and said, she wants to respect what her uncle's wishes are, whatever those are. And then she gave me a brief health history and pretty much said, there you go. And I had a follow-up question, and I never heard back from her. So what I've been dealing with since then, which has been the hardest, is the feeling of rejection from someone that I didn't even know I needed to feel accepted by. There's someone, and you wouldn't think it would cause you such sadness, but it does. It's just this awful, horrible feeling. And with it, I've been trying to do therapy and all of those things. But it's just, I don't know. I feel like I have a story that's unfinished because this man who is out there, and I know who's out there, wants absolutely nothing to do with me and won't even acknowledge my existence. So to this day, that's the status of that. And I also still have not told my father and not my birth father, my biological father. When my
your
mom,
birth certificate father?
oh, that's what I meant, my birth certificate father. And when my mom told me that his, that she had told him that it was a possibility and he decided not to do anything about it, I feel like that was his choice at that time. And I don't want to tell him. I mean, my children are his only grandchildren. We are so close. Like, I am such a daddy's girl, and I feel like it would completely crush him and break his heart. So it's just something I'm holding on to. My husband knows. I did tell my brother, and he was great. He told me half sibling doesn't mean anything. We're still full siblings in his eyes. But other than that, that brings me to today and where I'm at.
Tell me a little bit about what you've done for your healing since finding out you were an NPE.
So on top of getting therapy, so it was interesting when I found out I didn't even know NPE was a thing. So there was, I did this since finding out, that was 2016, so 8 years ago. And, I think I sat down and Googled, "My dad's not my dad," or something like that. And your podcast came up. And that was the first thing I found. And that was so helpful and amazing to have these stories to listen to other people in the same situation. It made me feel like I wasn't alone, because my husband is so supportive and so amazing, but when you don't know, you don't know. And I mean, even my mom, who has been really great, writing him a letter, she actually, I'm going to give her credit, she paid for me to go on the 2 retreats that I went on. She's been fabulous. Unlike a lot of other people, I'm not angry at her. In therapy, I think they've been trying to get me to acknowledge that I'm angry with her, and I'm not, because I feel like I got the best dad out of the deal. And, obviously the guy who is my birth father, who wants nothing to do with me, I don't know if he would have been that great of a dad. So I'm thankful that I got to grow up with my dad as my dad. And anyway, sorry, back to finding the NPE stories. I did that, and through your podcast, I heard about the retreats. And so I've gone to 2 of those retreats, which were so healing and so helpful to be in that community and go through that. So that's what I've been doing. It's still an ongoing process. I still listen to the NPE stories. They still give me comfort and make me feel like I'm not alone and out there, and help me heal.
I love that your mom paid for you to go to these retreats. That's amazing.
Yeah, through this, I've learned a lot about my mom. She did have an affair on my dad. I found out she also had an affair on my stepdad. So I think she has a lot of issues and that I'm more looking at is more that she needs therapy for those. I feel like she made the best decision she could at the time. And when I confronted her with it, she didn't try to deny it. She came right out and said, yes, you're right. And I believe she did the best that she could. Any questions I've ever had, she's willing to talk about it and willing to answer my questions. And like I said, she has paid for 2 retreats, and paid for my flight to get there. She's been really, really supportive. So
Yeah.
I adore my mother. I think, like I said, I think there's some things she probably needs to work through. But she loves me, and that's never been a question. She raised me the best that she could.
And I understand I frequently have guests on who don't tell their birth certificate fathers for the same or similar reasons as you. Now, when you suggested to him to take the test, or
Yeah.
when you gave the test, did he give any indication, or when you asked to connect with him, did he give any indication?
Okay. So a little bit. Looking back, yes. So it took him like a year to send that connection. Like I asked repeatedly for him to do it, and he'd say, yes, I'll do it. Yes, I'll do it. And I just assumed it was like a, kind of like technology couldn't figure it out was why he was taking so long. But I think he was probably taking so long because he was scared of what it was going to show.
Sure. I hear how much you love your parents and what a beautiful relationship you have with your dad. So I understand what you're saying.
Yeah. So I think I was talking about it actually with my mom recently. Do we think he knows? Like for sure. And I think he probably does, but I don't think it's anything we'll ever talk about, which is really strange. And something I've talked about in therapy is that really the best thing that I'm carrying this around, this heavy secret around. I just can't bring myself to have that conversation with him. The other pieces my kids don't know, which I feel like I'm perpetuating this lie. That's another thing that kind of coming through listening to podcasts and such is, how do we stop having this perpetual cycle? And I will tell them, I think when my dad passes away, which that could be years and years from now, but at this point, I'm still holding it pretty close.
Yeah. Kris, there's no one right or wrong way to do this, right?
Yeah.
It's everyone has their own dynamics and their own relationships. I understand.
Yeah.
Now, with your birth father, the one that's never responded,
Yeah.
did he have any other children?
Not that I can find. From what I can find, which is very little, is I don't think he ever married. And yeah, he's not married now. I don't think he has any kids. So that's why I just can't wrap my head around how somebody can find out they have a child out in the world and they want nothing to do with it. I cannot understand how someone can be there. And so, part of me is maybe, I still say maybe he's not getting the letters I'm sending him. But he is. He has to be. I've never gotten a return letter or anything like that. So it's just, I think he's just choosing not to acknowledge it, which is heartbreaking.
It really is.
It is. I will say I did. He was born in a town about 3 hours north of the Twin Cities. And my mom knew that from when she had a relationship with him. And so me and the kids took a short weekend away up in this town. I booked a little VRBO and is up near a lake, and it was beautiful. But I went to the town library and I found old yearbooks. So I was able to pull up old pictures of him and find old pictures of him and take some photos so I could at least see him once. Much younger than he is now, but right away, I saw he has one dimple, just like my son, that one dimple, and I look a lot like him, which I've never looked like anyone. And people talk about the genetic mirroring, and the need to see people that look like you. And I've never had that. And I get that pull, right? Like I was always jealous of my friends whose whole families looked alike, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I just never looked like anybody other than the green eyes that I thought were my dad's. Turns out they are my birth fathers. And ancestry, I keep building my tree and keep digging. I don't even know what I'm looking for because I'm just there's nothing else to find out there. I think it's, this last step is getting him to acknowledge me. And I don't know how to do that yet.
I'll talk with you about this after we get off today, but I have also never met my birth father. And I also thought I looked like my birth certificate father. I walked like him and I thought I had the same, legs and face. And yes, it's crazy. So but now you are seeing some resemblance with your
Yes.
The pictures you could find.
Yeah.
If Kris, I really appreciate you coming on and sharing this. If people wanted to get in touch with you, could they do that?
Absolutely. I would love to talk to anybody going through the journey. It's a long, hard road, and I'm still going through it. And I just think community is the best way to do it. So yes, I'd be happy to talk to anybody.
What's the best way to get in touch with you?
You can email me. It's Kristine, Kristine, Kelly, Kelly. And then M as in Mary, P as in Paul, L, S as in Sam @gmail.com.
Oh, Kristine Kelly, Minneapolis, basically.
Yes, that's what it is.
Oh, Kris, thank you so much for sharing your story today. I really appreciate you.
Thank you, Lily. I appreciate you so much.
These stories are here for us to identify with. If you are an NPE and would like to share your story, email npestories@gmail.com. You do not have to give any identifying information. If you are an NPE and would like to share your story, I'd like to hear from you. Subscribe to this podcast to hear more. Come heal with us.